A town that's been on fire for 63 years. A river you can step across that becomes the mighty Mississippi. A spot where a single raindrop decides between 3 oceans. Today, we're exploring 40 mind-blowing facts about Pennsylvania's geography that will change how you see the Keystone State. Fact 1. Pennsylvania is the only original colony that doesn't touch the ocean. Think about that for a second. While 12 other founding states fought for coastal access, Pennsylvania got landlocked. Yet it still became one of America's most powerful states. That's the ultimate middle child energy.
Fact 2. There's a town in Pennsylvania that's been burning underground since 1962. Centralia was a thriving mining community of over 1,000 people. Then a landfill fire spread to abandoned coal mines beneath the streets. The ground temperatures hit 900 degrees Fahrenheit in spots. Today, fewer than 10 residents remain in what's become America's most famous ghost town, and the fire could burn for 250 more years. Fact 3. The Appalachian Mountains don't run through Pennsylvania in a straight line. They curve through the state in a giant S-shaped diagonal. This forced settlers to follow ancient Native American trails for centuries. Roads couldn't cross the ridges. They had to snake between them. Even the Pennsylvania Turnpike gave up and just tunneled straight through. Fact 4. Pennsylvania contains the only triple continental divide east of the Mississippi River. In Potter County, there's a spot where 3 springs sit within 1,000 yards of each other. One raindrop landing here could end up in the Gulf of Mexico, the Atlantic Ocean, or the North Atlantic via the Great Lakes. 3 oceans, 1 hilltop, infinite possibilities. Fact 5. The state has a 40-mile coastline on Lake Erie. But here's the twist. It's just a tiny panhandle wedge. This sliver of land gives Pennsylvania access to the entire Great Lakes shipping network. Without it, the state would be completely landlocked. Geography's version of winning the lottery. Fact 6. Western Pennsylvania's rivers flow backwards from the rest of the state. While eastern PA drains to the Atlantic, the west drains to the Mississippi. The Allegheny and Monongahela flow toward the Gulf of Mexico, 2,000 miles away. This created 2 completely different economies in one state. It's like Pennsylvania can't decide which coast it wants to be. Fact 7. There's a river in Pennsylvania so small, you can step across it. The Allegheny River's source in Potter County is less than a foot wide. You could literally hop over it. Yet this trickle becomes one of the mightiest rivers in America, eventually joining the Ohio, then the Mississippi. From puddle to powerhouse in 325 miles. Fact 8. Pennsylvania sits on 15 billion tons of coal, most of it anthracite. This is 95% of all anthracite coal in the United States. Without Pennsylvania's coal, America's industrial revolution doesn't happen. Steel mills don't rise, railroads don't expand. One state literally powered an entire nation's transformation. Fact 9. The state has over 250,000 acres of abandoned mine land. When the mining stopped, they just left it. Sinkholes swallow buildings. Toxic water seeps into rivers. Pennsylvania has more abandoned mine sites than any other state. The ghosts of industry are eating the landscape alive. Fact 10. Here's where it gets wild. Pennsylvania has its own Grand Canyon. Pine Creek Gorge is 47 miles long and 1,000 feet deep. Locals call it the Grand Canyon of Pennsylvania, and they're not exaggerating. The canyon was carved by glacial meltwater over thousands of years. Arizona's got nothing on this. Fact 11. The highest point in Pennsylvania is only 3,213 feet tall. Mount Davis in Somerset County barely qualifies as a mountain by Western standards. Yet Pennsylvania's elevation changes are so dramatic that they defined American history. The Appalachian ridges here were harder to cross than some Rocky Mountain passes. Size isn't everything, it's the angle of attack. Fact 12. Philadelphia sits on a fall line where hard rock meets soft sediment. This invisible geological boundary created the city's economic power. Rivers hit the fall line and drop, perfect for watermills. Ships could sail up to the falls but no further, perfect for ports. An accident of ancient geology built one of America's greatest cities. Fact 13. Pennsylvania is 60% forest, 17 million acres of trees. That's more forested land than many entire states possess. When William Penn arrived, he named it Penn's Woods for a reason. Despite centuries of logging, steel mills, and cities, the forest keeps coming back. Pennsylvania is secretly a giant woodland hiding its industrial past. Fact 14. The Delaware Water Gap is a mountain that split in half. The Delaware River carved straight through a ridge of the Appalachians. Nobody knows exactly how this happened. Rivers usually flow around mountains, but this one just didn't. Nature's version of, I'm going through, not around. Fact 15. In 1889, a dam burst and killed over 2,200 people in minutes. The Johnstown flood was one of America's worst disasters. A recreational lake owned by wealthy sportsmen collapsed after heavy rain. A 60-foot wall of water traveling 40 miles per hour obliterated an entire factory town. The geography that made Pennsylvania rich also made it deadly. Fact 16. Pennsylvania has a town named Intercourse, and yes, it's in the middle of Amish country. The name either comes from a horse racing track or an old word for community gathering. But let's be honest, tourists stop there for one reason only. Sometimes geography gets awkward. Fact 17. The state contains 6 completely different physiographic provinces: Atlantic Coastal Plain, Piedmont, Ridge and Valley, Allegheny Plateau, Appalachian Mountains, and the Lake Erie lowlands. This means Pennsylvania has more geological diversity than states 5 times its size. Drive 2 hours in any direction and you're in a different world. It's like 6 states stacked in one. Fact 18. Lake Erie is the shallowest of the Great Lakes. The average depth is only 62 feet. You could stack 8 school buses and still break the surface. This makes Pennsylvania's shoreline incredibly productive for fish. It also makes the lake freeze solid most winters. Shallow water, massive impact. Fact 19. Pennsylvania's bedrock is older than dinosaurs. The rocks exposed in the Piedmont region date back 1.3 billion years. These are some of the oldest rocks on Earth's surface. When you walk through eastern Pennsylvania, you're stepping on the literal foundation of the continent. Ancient doesn't even begin to cover it. Fact 20. There's a spot in Pennsylvania where underground fires outnumber volcanoes. The state has 38 active coal mine fires burning right now. There are only about 1,500 active volcanoes in the world. Pennsylvania's underground infernos are slowly consuming billions of tons of coal. The earth beneath your feet is burning, and nobody can stop it. Fact 21. Pennsylvania has a peninsula that's physically moving. Presque Isle on Lake Erie is a 3,200-acre sand spit, and it's migrating eastward. Wave by wave, longshore drift drags the entire formation northeast. Since it first formed, it's shifted roughly 3 miles from its original position. Pennsylvania's only beach is slowly walking away. Fact 22. The Susquehanna River is older than the Appalachian Mountains. Not just older than the trees or the towns, older than the mountains it runs through. At over 300 million years old, it predates the Appalachians by tens of millions of years. The mountains literally rose up around a river that was already there. The Nile, one of Earth's most famous rivers, is only 30 million years old by comparison. Fact 23. Pennsylvania nearly didn't have any lake access at all. After the Revolution, the Erie Triangle was a no-man's land nobody owned. New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Pennsylvania all claimed it simultaneously. The federal government eventually sold the 300-square-mile chunk to Pennsylvania for just enough money to keep the state from becoming fully landlocked. One real estate deal changed the entire economic destiny of a state. Fact 24. There's a pothole in Pennsylvania big enough to swallow a house. Near Scranton, the Archbald pothole sits 38 feet deep and 42 feet wide. Coal miners discovered it in 1884 when an explosion opened the ground beneath them. They fled for their lives as 1,000 tons of rock came pouring in. It's the world's largest glacial pothole, and it's been sitting there for 20,000 years. Fact 25. The Susquehanna is the longest commercially unnavigable river in North America. It stretches 444 miles, bigger than many states' entire river systems. But its rapids, falls, and shallow gorges made it useless for shipping. Captain John Smith figured this out the hard way in 1608 when his boat simply couldn't get through. William Penn had planned an entire second Philadelphia on its banks and never got to build it. Fact 26. Pennsylvania's border with Delaware is literally a circle. In 1681, the charter used a 12-mile radius from a courthouse in Newcastle as the boundary. It's one of the only circular state borders in the United States. But here's the kicker. The circle extends into the Delaware River. Delaware technically owns part of New Jersey's riverbank, and both states are still arguing about it. Fact 27. Philadelphia was almost in Maryland. When William Penn's charter was drawn up, a surveying error placed the 40th parallel through Philadelphia. That would have put the entire city inside Maryland's territory. The King of England had made a basic geography mistake and nearly given Pennsylvania's capital away. It took 85 years, 2 famous surveyors, and the Mason-Dixon line to finally sort it out. Fact 28. Connecticut once claimed a chunk of Pennsylvania as its own. Based on a colonial charter that granted land sea to sea, Connecticut declared the Wyoming Valley theirs. Settlers poured in, and an actual war broke out between two American colonies. It was called the Pennamite-Yankee War, and it raged in valleys that are now quiet suburbs. Pennsylvania didn't fully secure the territory until 1782. Fact 29. There's a 1 square mile triangle of land that was disputed for 240 years. The Delaware Wedge sits where Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Maryland converge. Born from a surveying error that created a tiny geometric impossibility, neither colony could agree who owned it. The dispute wasn't fully resolved until 1921, 240 years after it began.
Fact 30. Pennsylvania sits on top of a 300-million-year-old tropical ocean. That ancient sea died, compressed, and became the coal, oil, and gas fields. Before the Appalachians existed, warm, shallow water covered the entire state. Marine fossils, sea creatures, are still found in Pennsylvania's mountain ridges today. You can hold a piece of an ancient ocean just by picking up the right rock. Fact 31. Ricketts Glen has 21 named waterfalls, all within 2 miles. One single creek drops 1,000 feet in just over 2 miles on its way down the Allegheny front. Each ledge creates a new waterfall, then another, then another. The most concentrated waterfall corridor in the entire Northeast. And it almost became a national park until World War II killed the budget. Fact 32. Ice Age glaciers stopped exactly halfway through Pennsylvania. The state has a precise glacial boundary line cutting diagonally across it. North of the line, glaciated landscape of kettle lakes, eskers, and smoothed valleys. South of the line, ancient, rugged, unglaciated terrain, untouched by ice. You can drive across Pennsylvania and literally cross from one Ice Age world into another. Fact 33. The world's first oil well wasn't in Texas or Saudi Arabia. It was Pennsylvania! In 1859, a former unemployed railroad conductor drilled into the ground near Titusville. At 69 feet deep, oil exploded upward. Within 6 years, a town of 250 people became a city of 10,000. Every barrel of petroleum pumped anywhere on Earth since traces back to that one hole in the ground. Fact 34. Pennsylvania's northwest corner was once graveyard territory for ships. The waters off the Erie Triangle are known as the graveyard of Lake Erie. Violent storms, shallow shoals, and brutal winters sank hundreds of vessels here. The same narrow strip of land Pennsylvania bought to get lake access was surrounded by one of the deadliest patches of water in America. They got the port they wanted. They just didn't advertise what came with it. Fact 35. The Allegheny River flows north before going south, a geographic contradiction. Most rivers in Pennsylvania run toward the Atlantic, but the Allegheny actually flows north for part of its course before looping south toward Pittsburgh. It defies the expected gravity of the terrain. It's the same river that starts as a puddle you can step across, and eventually reaches the Gulf of Mexico. Fact 36. Pennsylvania contains a boulder field the size of 15 football fields, with no boulders nearby. At Hickory Run State Park, a flat plain is covered by 400 feet by 1,800 feet of jumbled stones. There's no hillside above it, no obvious source for the rocks. The glaciers dumped them here 20,000 years ago and just left. The field has barely shifted since the Ice Age ended. Fact 37. There's a park in Pennsylvania that sits on 2 completely different geologic provinces. Ricketts Glen straddles the Allegheny Plateau and the Ridge and Valley Province simultaneously. The exact line where they meet creates the waterfall corridor. Harder rock on top, softer rock below. One creek eroding its way through the boundary between 2 ancient worlds. That geological accident is the reason all 21 waterfalls exist at all. Fact 38. Pennsylvania's western river system was completely reversed by glaciers. Before the Ice Age, rivers in the northwest flowed north toward what became Lake Erie. The advancing glacier blocked those routes entirely. Water backed up, found new channels, and rerouted south. Today's Allegheny and Ohio river systems are the geological legacy of that glacial traffic jam. Fact 39. The Mason-Dixon line was so important that stones were shipped from England to market. Every single mile of the 244-mile boundary was marked with a 12-inch square stone. Every 5 miles, a larger crown stone was placed, engraved with the Penn coat of arms on one side, the Calvert coat of arms on the other. The total cost in today's money, over $570,000. Some of those original stones still stand in iron cages along the Pennsylvania border right now.
Fact 40. Pennsylvania is literally the Keystone, not just by nickname, but by position. In the original 13 colonies, Pennsylvania sat directly in the middle of the eastern seaboard. Remove it, and the nation splits in half. Southern colonies disconnected from northern. Its rivers connected to both the Atlantic and the interior. Its mountains controlled every western route. The name Keystone State wasn't a compliment. It was a geographic fact. From a peninsula that walks across a lake to a river older than the mountains around it, Pennsylvania doesn't just have history, it is history. Carved in stone, coal, ice, and contested borders. Every ridgeline tells a story of ancient oceans. Every river holds the memory of a glacier. And somewhere beneath these hills, ancient seas are still pressing upward, slowly, inevitably, waiting to become the next thing that sounds completely fake, but is absolutely real.